This meeting is being recorded.
All right, good evening, everyone. We have a rather short but monumental Gemara that we'll be covering tonight. Monumental in the sense that if we do what we're supposed to, we will be completing the fourth parak of Masechah Sukkah and beginning the fifth and final parak of the Masechta. And that's great because we're in the final stretch of our shir together. So hopefully, again, as we approach closer, I'll try to calculate to make sure that we actually finish Masechta together. It'd be a shame if there are like two blot left, and then we called it there. So we may have to figure out maybe we up it to daf a week as we get closer. We'll figure it out.
So
Okay,
what page are we on now?
we're on Nun Amid Aleph 50a. All right, and we are a few lines down from the top. We're at the double dots, quoting from our Mishnah. The Mishnah said, "Nishbecha oniskalsa," that if the water for libation is left um, unattended, it spills, or it's left exposed. So then it will be puzzle. It can't be used. Now, the concern is that if you leave it exposed, there's a general concern in halachic literature for mayim megulim. It's really a health concern in general that a snake might come and insert its venom, and you certainly don't want to drink that. Interestingly, here, the concern doesn't seem to be that the venom inherently postles the libation, but that there's a shear. We talked about what the shear might be. Is it three lugin, whatever it might be. And since the venom is taking the place of the actual libation, you won't have a shear. You won't have the proper amount that needs to be put in for libation, which is a problem. So, v'amai li'aver b'misanenes. What's the big deal? If you left it exposed, why throw it out? Just run it through a sieve, run it through some kind of filter, and the thicker venom will be filtered out. So the reason is, lema sees the look Rabbi Nehemiah. It would seem because our mission is not in accordance to Rabbi Nehemiah, the Tanya, as it was taught in a brisa, misanenes yishba mishum giloi, that even if you filter it through, again, the sieve, the filter, whatever the term is that you want to use, so then it will still there'll still be a problem of it being exposed. Rabbi Nechemia, Amasai, Bisman Shetachtona Magula, Avosman Shetachtona Mechusa. This is only when the bottom part is exposed, right? There's two parts to the contraption. There's the top, right, where you pour it in, and then there's the bottom where it filters through. So if only the top part is exposed, that's okay. If the bottom part's exposed, then it's a problem. So Avabishal Yona Magula, and even though the top part is exposed, Ain Ba Mishum Giloy, it's not considered an issue of Giloy. Bivnei Sha'aras Nachash Doma Lispog Tsafa Omi Bimkoma, because the venom will kind of stay on the top. It won't make its way deep down to the bottom part of the contraption. So that's all to say that Rabbi Nechemiah seems to think that if you do filter it, there won't be an issue. So it seems that our Mishnah, because it didn't suggest that as a form of recourse, it says just throw it all out. It seems to think that the filtration is not sufficient. However, Afilu Tema Rabbi Nechemia, even according to Rabbi Nechemia, he could still very well be the Tana of our Mishnah. How do we make him work? Why didn't our Mishnah just suggest filtering? Amar Damar Rabbi Nechemia lehediot. This whole discussion was for hediot, for you and I. When we want to drink something, we can filter it. Avalekavoa mi amar v'leisle Rabbi Nechemia, right? When it comes to giving something to God, but Rabbi Nechemia ignored the important lesson that we derive from Malachi, in which it's like God saying, "Hakriveu na lifechasecha hayitzrecha o hayisafanecha amar Shem Tzivakos," that this idea that if you went and give it to a human with authority, you wouldn't go to like a governor, you wouldn't go to a prince, you wouldn't give them some kind of offering. If it's not befitting for flesh and blood, certainly it's not befitting for the Melech Machi Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Rabbi Nechemia might say filtering is okay for you and I, but when we're giving something to Hashem, we don't just post facto filter something and throw it in front of God. Chas v'shalom. We want the finest unadulterated object or offering that we could possibly give, and so even he would do that. Now, interesting thing about this pasuk, I think it's the Aruch HaShulchan. No, it's not the Aruch HaShulchan. Maybe it's Yerushalayim. I'm forgetting which Achron it was. I have to go back to my own notes. It's been a few years since I taught this one. When we were talking about repetition in prayer, repeating words. And if you remember when we learned the Sukkah together, we identified like 7 or 8 or 9 potential problems that could come up. And one of them was from this pasuk, the idea that you don't go speak to the to the mayor, to the governor, to the president. You wouldn't just say, "My dear president." My dear president, my dear that sounds ridiculous. So you wouldn't do that before God either. To repeat words over sound, like you think about it, like no one talks like that to a dignitary. So that was one of the arguments he made against the repetition of words. I guess also you don't sing like it's a Broadway production either to dignitary. So I'm not sure how far you take that. Anyway, Hadron Alach Lua Varava. We have just completed the fourth parak. And now we will briefly begin the fifth and final parak of Maseches Sukkah. Starting with the Mishnah, and this Mishnah picks up on the previous one, well, not the immediate previous one, but a little before that, I think. Hachalil Chamisha Vashisha, the flute that we play, it can be played for either 5 days or for 6 days over the course of Yom Tov. Zeu Chalil Shel Beis HaShoeva. This is the flute that is played at the Simchas Beis HaShoeva in the Beis HaMikdash. She'eno docha lo as Shabbos lo as Yom Tov. It does not supersede Shabbos or Yom Tov. What's the idea? The idea is that since it doesn't supersede Shabbos or Yom Tov, if the first day of Sukkot and Shabbos, let's say, let's go with a case like that, they coincide, you could wind up with 6 days where you're playing the flute. But if they don't coincide, first day of Sukkot knocks out a day, Shabbos is going to knock out another day, so you wind up with just 5 days. All right? Now, let's just so we could, sink our teeth a little bit into the Gemara. Let's go to Nun Amid Beis. All right, I'll just do a little bit of the Gemara just so we can get on to the next part. Itmar, Rav Yehuda Rav Ina Chatani Sho'iv Chatani Chashuva. There seems to be a machlokus between Rav Yehuda and Rav Ina as to whether it's called the Simchas Beis HaSho'iva or the Simchas Beis HaChashuva, I guess. So Amar Mar Zutra, Madatani Sho'iva lo mishtabesh, Madatani Chashuva lo mishtabesh. Both of these, Elu Velu Divrei Kim Chaim, you're both right. How so? Madatani Sho'iva, the one who calls it a Sho'iva, lo mishtabesh tichsiv sha'afta mayim b'sason, that the drawing, right? When we draw the water of sason, of a celebration. So this idea of, we saw the previous Gemara, Simcha and Sason are not necessarily the same thing. But this idea of sason, of joy, of jubilation, being associated with the Simchas Beis HaShoeva. So that fits together nicely. Umantani chashuva, the one who calls it chashuva, lo mishtabesh, Rav Nachman mitzvah chashuva he, because indeed this is a very chashuva mitzvah. It's a very significant mitzvah. Uba mishesh me'brachos. Remember we talked about those cisterns that we had a machlokes as to where does the libation go once it hits the ground. So either it goes into like some sort of smaller not small, relatively comparatively smaller receptacle, though some big holder. Or it goes back to the cisterns that were there since the beginning of Maaseh Bereshit, since the beginning of the creation of the world. So that is pretty chashuv then, because that means this ritual has a connection all the way back to the creation of the world. One thing I'll just add in over here before we conclude. Look at Tosos. Tosos, top right of Nun Amud Beis. Tosos does us a favor and says, I know you guys are just learning Talmud Bavli, but maybe you'd like to learn something interesting from the Talmud Yerushalmi. So since we're not learning Yerushalmi Sukkah, he's doing us a favor. Yerushalmi Mefarish, Shemisham Shoavim Ruach HaKodesh, Shashchina Shomitoch Simcha. What are we drawing? We're not drawing simply water, but this almost sounds like a Hasidic art. We're drawing Ruach HaKodesh. We're drawing upon a divine spirit. Because there's a classic principle that the divine presence only rests upon someone who is besimcha. Tichsiv, so this comes from, was it Sefer Shmuel? I believe it's Shmuel. Where's the citation? Where's the pasuk? So, my mistake, Malachim. Right, so this idea that he brings the menagin to play a soft song for him so he could be in the right mindset to besimcha in order to accept the divine presence. And indeed, the Gemara Maisi Uvda the Yona ben Amisi Shahaya Me'ole Regalim. There was this fellow named Yona ben Amisi who would come up during Ola Regel season, during the Yom Tovim to Yerushalayim, and it was Simchas Beis HaShoeva shorts of Shechina. And indeed, when he went to Simchas Beis HaShoeva, the Shechina rested upon him. So that's another idea that we're not just drawing water, we're drawing upon the divine presence when we're there. Sounds like a nice Shabbos morning sermon idea as well. I haven't figured out how to work it in, but we'll figure it out. Okay, my friends, Mazel Tov. We're on the fifth and final parak, and I think now I can officially say we're in the home stretch. I keep saying every week I say we're more and more in the home stretch, which because it's true, we keep getting more and more in the home stretch. So wishing everyone a good Shabbos, Chag Kosher Sameach, and hopefully see you soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful holiday, everybody.
Thank you.